Good afternoon. Paul Lennon here, and I have the 27th episode of whatever my life, my autobiography. I think at this stage, In the Legion of Christ is finished, and I'm out of the Legion of Christ. I'm going to have to change the name of these following conversations we're having here. As a matter of fact, I made some notes for this talk with you, and funny enough, I did them in Spanish, so it'll show you how bilingual I am in both languages. And let it be said with all openness and honesty that I owe this to the Legion. Well, myself and the Legion, because I was the one who embarked on this crazy adventure, to Latin America or something, missionary, and then began learning Spanish in Spain in 1961. So I've been at it for a long, long time, and now I've always lived a lot in the Latino community. Even in the United States, my clients were mostly Hispanic. So now I'm in Guatemala and speaking Spanish all the time, most of the time. My wife is Guatemalan, and now my current friends and acquaintances are Spanish speakers. So that's something I owe to the Legion. And by the way, I just published a book not long ago called um, ¿Por qué me hice legionario de Cristo? Sorry, it's in Spanish. But I had originally subtitled it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And then I just thought about it and I said, no, the good, the bad, and the beautiful. Because this is one of the beautiful perks of being a legionary, of having been a legionary. And it's a pretty good command of the Spanish language and Spanish culture, which was useful to me in my recovery along the job line. And later on, I made some money out of it by being a translator. Yes, translator for National Geographic magazine. And that was very, very exciting and very fulfilling, and few extra dollars in to pay the rent. It was not a lot of money. People exaggerate an awful lot, about that. No, no, no. A couple of $100 a month or something. Okay. But now we're anyway. This is session 27 and chapter 11. Still, it's a little bit long. I'm making this a long short talk, and be section D more or less. It's like the fourth talk I've been given about chapter 11. And what I was saying was that from this chapter 11 on, it's no longer me in the Legion of Christ. So it's not in the Legion of Christ. Now it's leaving the Legion of Christ, and it's going to be out of the Legion of Christ from here on. So half of my autobiography is a big chunk at the beginning is my youth, and then another chunk is in the Legion, and now this is leaving the Legion, and we'll still be involved with the Legion to some degree, but it's all letting go. It's getting away. Adios, adios, adios. So it's not going to be, properly speaking, a critique of the Legion. So if anybody is listening to me from the other side, shall we say, or active legionaries or active people from the Regnum Christi, brothers and sisters, um, from here on out, it's not so much a critique of the Legion. There will be critique, but this is me getting my life together. So it's more about me, than the Legion of Christ. Hopefully, so I hope that this will be even more helpful to you on your path to recovery. Even if you think you're already there, maybe there are some things which can be helpful. I hope they are. You will see that I did things very gradually. And I just had a little bit of an insight today as I was preparing to talk that, you know, this story is kind of running along several tracks, not always at the same time, but there's different tracks that I'm heading out on now, out of the Legion. And one could be a kind of a psychological track. I'm getting myself together psychologically, and I'm reading and I'm studying psychology, or whatever you want to call that. psychotherapy. Mostly we call it in the Legion of Christ. So I'm not a psychiatrist, and it's a different thing. In the United States, most of the therapy is done by therapists, and psychiatrists do see clients, but very often they only prescribe medications. I'm finding that people in crisis in the Legion of Christ right now, in the Legion and in the Regnum Christi, they will often send them to some psychiatrist. And that is to get the people medicated. Forgive me for going off here on a tangent, but this is very distressing. So they're getting the people heavily medicated. So there are a lot of people, active legionaries and active señoritas y jóvenes, and maybe even married people in the Regnum Christi who are being very strongly medicated. Sometimes a lot of depression, and then a lot of maybe other mental illnesses are present. But for me, this is an aberration. Listen to me. This is absolutely unethical that they're not giving them proper psychotherapy, and they're drugging them out. People are getting drugged out, and this is a disgrace. Let me tell you, Paul Lennon ranting and raving. But what else can I do when I'm seeing people destroyed, really shipwrecked? Please, where is your not to talk about, the great our special virtue is charity. Can you imagine that? And you're sending your members to some psychiatrist who who you probably trust to keep that person quiet mostly. Oh my God. Father, forgive them. I don't know what they're doing. Very distressing. Anyway, this is one of the tracks that I'm following. There's also a spiritual track. Hopefully, I'll be getting some spirituality into me, because I was also shipwrecked spiritually, you might say, religiously, Catholically, in a certain sense. Okay, um, so that was it. Then there's also part of it is going to be about practical things, and most of the people who are out have done the practical things. How to get a job? I'm not going to tell you that because I'm not too good at that, but other people are better. And but getting a job, and for me then getting it's a big one to leave the legion and then leave the priesthood. We'll talk about this. And so it's a total destruction of your career, shall we say. So then I had to build the whole thing up. New career, almost new person in a certain sense, new identity. Excuse me. Okay. And then the other element would be uh, I from the very beginning, or almost from the moment I left, I started analyzing Father Maciel, and I started analyzing the Legion of Christ. And based on this analysis, my critique of the Legion has been going on now for 30 years, I would say. And please believe me that I'm not talking off the top of my head. Please. Okay. The Spanish version, which parallel to this, I got a little bit ahead of the English one, so I have to catch up now in the English one. I'm talking about making that furtive phone call. I had not seen or spoken with Declan for many years. And the other day when I was talking, I was trying to put it all together, and maybe it was a long, long time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because we followed very distinct paths. I was a little bit on the quick track, or whatever it's called, to the priesthood to get ordained, because this was one of Maciel's goals, was to get a bunch of Irish guys ordained ASAP so they could go to the United States and conquer the USA for Christ. But Declan was, as I was saying, tall, dark, and handsome. So he was very much into fundraising, Declan, and very, very talented, and much more practical and gifted than me in the human sphere, in the practical sphere. But I didn't know where he was and what had happened to him. That fateful day, my survival instinct kicked in. I chose not to call from the Legion House. I'm talking about Christ the King parish in Cancun. The Padre's house uh, is close to the church, but also there's another office area where there was a secretary, a female secretary, to handle phone calls and such stuff. Uh, Parish secretary, shall we say? And I went there during the secretary's lunch break. I wanted to be totally alone. I wanted to have privacy. I placed a long distance call to somewhere in the US of A with that card. It was about, what is it? Area code 203 or something. I'm not quite sure what it is. Um, During the secretary's lunch break. Uh, this was the first long distance call I had ever placed by myself in my life. At home, we were modest people. We did not have a phone in our house when I left in 1961. It was not common. And during my Legion life, my superiors would make those calls if they were needed, right? I mean, when my dad passed away, I was told by Father Duenas. That's how I found out. Father Duenas told me that my dad had died 1960, 66, 1966. Yeah. So mostly done through the gerente, whatever it was, the manager, or through the director, superior of the house. Anyway, the number led to Our Lady of Lourdes Parish, and I noticed this yesterday. Our Lady of Lourdes comes into the picture for the second time because, you know, when we left Ireland originally, we went directly to Lourdes to place our vocation, which we still didn't have, you know. It was assumed, like lots of things in the Legion, right? You assume you have a vocation until your superior tells you different. How about that for discernment and for maturity? Absolutely bonkers. Anyway, we went to Lourdes, and that was Our Lady of Lourdes. And in Ireland, there was great devotion to Our Lady of Lourdes. So that was a real kind of a perk for me, for us, a real motivator for us, the first Irish guys that went through for Lourdes, because we had a big, the direct flights actually. That's why we went a direct flight from Dublin to Lourdes. There's so much devotion. People were going, pilgrimages were going over several times a week. But here again, Our Lady of Lourdes Parish in Bethesda, Maryland. Okay. And who picks up the phone? But the padre. Now, I didn't know whether that was the office. How did he grab the phone? But he did. Great. Paul, is that you? Uh, where are you? Did you hear about my demise? After all those years speaking Spanish, I did not know what demise meant. I'm out. I've transitioned to the diocese. Then further on, I can speak to the Archbishop to see if you can try out your priesthood here. You know, he knew I was, you know, walking the tightrope as regards my priestly vocation, which you can try out here in Washington. Um, I'm taking off for a few days after Christmas and we'll be flying home. This was in December. See you in, let's make an arrangements and see you in Dublin. Um, there, I think it was Abbey Street. You know, there, you know what I'm talking about, Abbey Street and such a restaurant. We'll see you there on the 27th or 28th of December. I don't know. Incredible, huh? I now understand, and this was 12 years ago, that in late November 1984, I was starting a series of broad, disjointed movements. Still, I'm in a bit of a confused state. There's going to be a heavy depressive episode here. It's called major depressive episode, kicking in, and with that comes a lot of confusion, a lot of blurriness, a lot of awkwardness, even physical awkwardness comes with this. It's terrible. I wouldn't wish it for my worst enemy. disjointed, right? Actions on my part, moving around a lot, a little bit agitated here in my effort to leave the Legion. Mexico City to Cancun. Then there I moved around, as I told you, missionary territory, picked up my books. I think I may have said I picked up some of Father Powell's books. And then thanks to the Lozanos in Mexico City, that first time I had money to get my ticket to Dublin if I needed to do so. But I would be able to get to Washington, first of all, with that donation. Uh, so first of all, I go to Dublin. And this episode I'm calling the episode I've just described, The Kindness of Confrere, the kindness of an ex-legionary. And people, my dear friends, in and out of the organization, institution, avail yourself of the kindness of former legionaries. I better get going. Anyway, in Dublin, I met my long-lost cousin, Colette, and my old friend, Martin Devlin, who is the brother of Father John Devlin. They will never know, and they listened non-judgmentally to my tale of woe. So these were some of my first kind of listeners, empathizers, emotionally supporters. They just listened and they were kind, and that was a great relief for me. They gave me, I received great acceptance from them. That's why I love my cousin very dearly. And I've lost sight of Martin, but I hope he's well. They will never know. Their understanding helped me to shake off the tremendous burden of guilt and to begin repairing my damaged self-esteem. Meeting with my mother was another pivotal event. I could feel the earth move under my feet when I told her I was leaving the Legion, and she riposted that leaving the Legion should not interfere with my continuing in the priesthood. Mother was not particularly helpful, but I was proud I had been frank with her about my needs and decisions. And now, assertiveness. Declan Murphy, somehow or other, gave me a book which was very useful and may be still useful to many others. It's called The Second Journey. And it's written by a Jesuit priest. I'm not quite sure now of his name. Oh, sorry, Gerald O'Collins. And I wrote, this is when I start writing. My spiritual quest now starts kicking in. It's a kind of a spiritual book, even though it's a very literal literaturish book, excuse me, and he starts with a quote from Dante, as I'm not mistaken. And I wrote in the margins of that little booklet, don't forget that we're entering now another source of support, bibliotherapy. I always had a knack of finding the right book for what I needed. This, I thank God for this. Comes from inside me. Grace of God. Humanistic psychology believes in this, that we encounter the ways. If we're not too stressed out and too absolutely locked in like I was in the Legion, I felt like I was in prison. But once I was out of there, I was able to be more creative. This book was given to me. It's called The Second Journey. This book was given to me by someone who already has started his second journey a few hours, a few years before me. It really helped me make it through the hell of leaving. O'Collins Gerald, 1978. The Second Journey, Spiritual Awareness and Midlife Crisis. New York, Paulus Press. First reading, Ireland, December the 19th, 1984 to January the 27th, 1985. Very appropriate gift. Reading slowly, no panic. I know my state. I have plumbed the depths. De profundis clamavi ad te domine. From the depths have I cried out. Getting a little emotional here. From the depths have I cried out to you, Lord, hear my prayer. It is a psalm. Sometimes the psalms can help us to pray if we have difficulty. Psalms may be useful. I am now 41. The Legion was 23 years. The priesthood 15 already. Where do I go? What do I do? I thank God that I am relatively free to make decisions, to decide on my life, free to decide, trying to see, to reappraise and reevaluate these past 23, indeed these past 41 years. What about me? Who worried about me? Who's going to help me? Who cares about me? Who's going to save Paul? Only Paul. Paul must save Paul. Paul will save Paul. Strong stuff, hey? Getting your mojo, as the Americans say, getting your act together here, your strength together. Hallelujah. We're on the path to recovery. Join me and take good care of yourselves. This is Hillary. This is Hillary now. Come on, Hillary. A little bit of Mozart from Hillary. Arrivederci.